as we close, Senator Toomey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few points to wrap up. First, I'd like to respond to my friend and colleague, the senior senator from Montana, who brought up the issue of the 2017 tax reform, and remind him and all of us that in the wake of our 2017 tax reform, we had the strongest economy in 50 years. We had all-time record low unemployment. We had wages growing fastest for the lowest income workers. We had inflation that was modest. And in fact, we were narrowing the gap between high-income and low-income people. Oh, and by the way, tax revenue collected by the federal government was growing. I also want to touch on the important point that Senator Kramer correctly made. The CBO has not said that the Build Back Better bill will be fully paid for. He correctly noted that it would result in an increase in the deficit totaling $367 billion over the 10-year period, not counting any additional revenue that would be generated by additional funding for tax enforcement. But when you take that number into account as well, which is $207 billion, you are still left with a $160 billion estimated increase in the deficit over the 10 years. But it's actually much worse than that, because by design, the spending in this bill is heavily front-loaded, with the expectation that supposedly expiring programs will actually be continued. If you look at CBO's numbers for the first 5 years, the deficit increases by $804 billion. That is $804 billion in additional deficits, which means $804 billion increasing in the debt we would take on, which is why our Democratic colleagues need such a big number by which to raise the debt ceiling, and why they are so unwilling so far to use the tool that is available to them to pass the debt ceiling increase with a simple majority vote, the reconciliation tool, because it also requires that they specify just how much debt they want to run up. So, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important to set the record straight on those matters.
I thank the ranking